Booking a flight can feel really overwhelming, but today I am taking you through my step-by-step process for securing the best flights at the best prices. This has been a highly requested topic over on my Instagram, and I'm so happy to finally be able to share my tips and tricks.
And who am I? I'm Beatrice. I'm a lawyer, traveler, and foodie, and my goal is to help you get the most possible value out of your trips.
By the end of this video, you will know how to save time and money on booking your next trip. So make sure to watch and let me know if you have any questions, and we will sort that out together in the comments. Make sure to figure out your travel style. Some people want to fly short haul, and some people want to fly long haul, and some people, including myself, want to do a little of both. So ideally, I would like to take one long haul trip every year to avoid the snow and misery of Swedish winter season. So I try to schedule winter trips somewhere between December to February each year if I can. So I know that I always want to have a long haul trip then, so I make sure to start planning that 1 year ahead of time. So as for shorter trips to Southern Europe or similar destinations, it's enough to plan about 6 months ahead. So if you're traveling in July, make sure to plan and start booking in January or February. The prices really don't move much before then, and that is also when demand is starting to go up. This mostly applies to high season, which is December to February, and it's also June to August, which is when most people have time off and are ready to travel. If you travel during different times in the year, you don't really have to book this far in advance because there's not as much demand. I think you can cut those times by half actually, but still make sure to keep a lookout and start searching for prices and availability as soon as they release. There are a few good places to start when it comes to searching for cheap flights. Google Flights is one of my favorite places because you get a really nice overview of everything that's available to you. You also have their world map where you can search based on pricing, and you will easily be able to navigate which airline is flying to which destination and make your decisions from there. Something that I really like to do is to set price alerts, which is something you can do on Google Flights as well. And then I get weekly alerts or even every other day for when price increases or decreases. Tracking prices is one of the best things you can do to secure the best possible rate, because prices keep going up and down based on demand. You shouldn't be in a rush when you're booking. You should be able to have an idea of what you want and then set a price alert, and then be able to wait for at least 3 to 4 weeks before you actually book. So planning ahead will really be key here. Something else that I really like to do and that I highly recommend to maximize your time is to book open jaw tickets. Let's say that you will be visiting Italy this summer and you want to visit Rome and you want to visit Florence. Then it makes so much more sense to book your outbound trip to Florence and your return trip from Rome. You will save an extra day in travel time if you compare it to traveling back to Florence by train or something like that, and you will also save that train cost when opting for the open jaw version as well. So even if this option looks a little more expensive on the booking site, make sure to consider the time and the cost of going back to that place just to take the flight instead of booking that open jaw ticket. So when you're debating between booking an open jaw ticket that looks a little bit more expensive or just booking a simple return ticket, make sure to factor in the costs of actually getting to that original destination again. I avoid layovers as much as I can because there has been so many instances where I have traveled from Stockholm to Copenhagen and then on to Asia, and there is only one flight a day to that Asian destination. What happens if my first flight gets cancelled? Then I will be missing that second leg as well, and it will take me an additional day to get to my final destination. If I am lucky, the other choice would be for the airline to put me on a different flight to somewhere else in Europe and hop on a flight there instead to get me to the US or Asia. It is far from guaranteed that the airline will provide you with food and hotel if you have to stay an extra night somewhere along the way. It is really at every airline's discretion, and you have no idea where they will be putting you. I highly recommend you to avoid layover at all costs, and if I have a layover, I make sure that it is at least 2 hours, so I have plenty of time to move between the gates at the airport, and I also have some time to relax, maybe do some shopping. I would rather have that than all the extra problems that come with missing my flight, so I avoid tight connections like plague, and I avoid layovers if I can. I don't want to pay for direct flights all the time because they do tend to cost a little extra, but if I have layovers, I try to have as few as possible, and I also try to have at least 2 hours between each flight, so I can make sure that I actually get on those flights instead of having to do last-minute plans, which cost a lot of time and money at the end. And this is also very connected to booking separate trips. Let's say that you are going from Stockholm to Copenhagen and then from Copenhagen to the US, for instance. If you book those as separate tickets with separate booking numbers, there is no one that is responsible for taking you from point point A to B. Instead, they are responsible for taking you from Stockholm to Copenhagen and then from Copenhagen to the US. And that is problematic because if you don't get on that first flight or if something else happens on the way, you will not be able to get a refund on that second ticket because they are not responsible for getting you from Stockholm to Copenhagen or on the first leg of your trip. That is why you need to book the whole trip at once from start to end. No separate tickets or anything like that. It may look cheaper from the start, but in many cases it's really not cheaper. And the more people you are, the bigger of a problem it is. And you will have to deal with insurance companies and everything. It is such a hassle. Just make sure to avoid this from the beginning. How should you book your trip? One of the things I enjoy the most with Google Flights is that they do redirect you to the actual airline websites when it comes to booking your trip. This is different from a lot of other similar websites such as Skyscanner or the Swedish version flygresor.se, which I tend to use a lot just to look at flights, because they will redirect you to various third-party solutions which aren't really solutions. Instead, those third-party solutions will be putting a wall between you and your airline, meaning that the airline will be asking you to talk to the third party whenever a problem occurs, and the third party will be asking you to call the airline when a problem occurs. And you will be standing in between, wasting your precious travel time. And also, when it comes to cancellation and luggage, those rules are set by the third party rather than the airline itself. But the airlines are the ones that will be standing there saying what you can and can't do at the end. And also, when it comes to luggage and cancellation, the third party will have their own rules for what you can and can't do, and they usually want to make money, so it will cost you more than doing the same thing with the airline directly. So you will frequently see that getting an extra bag will cost a lot more with that third party than it will if you go into the website of the airline that you will be traveling with and add a second bag there. The thing is, if you have used the third party, you can't add an extra bag with the airline because you have used a third party to book and you don't have as much control over your booking. This may be a little bit different from case to case, but overall, please avoid those third parties because they will only cause you problems. So make sure to book your travels directly with the airline to ensure a smooth ride. When you're considering the price of your ticket, make sure to factor in luggage if you want to have luggage included, because some tickets may look really cheap, but then luggage is super expensive. And some tickets may look a bit more expensive, but then they will not charge as much for luggage. So you have to factor in both options before deciding what to do. So before you book, make sure to check if you have any particular discounts that you can use. Some people have student discounts. There are also a lot of other discounts that may be applicable depending on circumstances. And something else that I love is Refunder, which is a cashback app which will let you get a small cashback on a percentage of the trip cost. Usually it's not much, but when you're booking tickets for a larger group or for a family, that adds up as well, and you will be saving some money by having Refunder or a similar cashback app. Now, Refunder is a Swedish app, but I am sure that other countries have similar systems and equivalents that you can look into. So make sure to look into cashback options and cashback apps to get a small refund on each flight. Another question is, should you always be booking the best price? Because that's not always the case. For me, it's usually a two-step process. I look at who has the best possible price for this particular route. Is it a route that I want to take? Is it airlines that I'm comfortable with? Do their terms benefit me when it comes to luggage and cancellation policy? Do they charge a lot of extra money for cancellation? What are you generally entering into when you book with them? And then I have my Scandinavian Airlines membership, which offers several benefits depending on the status I have and things like that. So usually I can bring extra bags and I will get points. I'm sure I'll get points with that other airline as well, but I don't have as much loyalty with them and I am based in Sweden. It is less likely that I will be using those points. So I try to stay loyal to my airline of choice, which is Scandinavian Airlines, to ensure that I can actually use my points and that it makes sense to keep collecting with them. So unless there's a big price difference, I always opt for Scandinavian Airlines. And to me, this also comes down to predictability. I already know how Scandinavian Airlines works. I know that if I book a refundable ticket, I will be getting that refund within the next few days without a discussion. That is not always the case when it comes to airlines you're not familiar with. Some airlines can put up big fights for you to get your money back. We saw a lot of that during COVID when everyone wanted to get their money back. Make sure to consider A, the loyalty you get for booking with with your usual airline versus what you're getting for picking the airline that offers the best price. What will be the best for you depending on your circumstances and where your loyalty is. And also, make sure to use a credit card while booking. That will give you even more points. I mostly use my American Express card to collect points with Scandinavian Airlines, which I can then use for future trips. I do not have a similar arrangement with other airlines, meaning that I prefer booking with Scandinavian Airlines because I do get more perks from it. Also, when you book with an airline you're not usually going with, make sure to read the terms carefully. And also make sure to still register loyalty points with them, because every airline has their own system for that, and it always makes sense to register a point afterwards. I mean, even if you're not consistently collecting points with them, you will still be able to get a discount on your next flight with them, and you never know when you're gonna need it. Most airlines will let you claim points up to several months after your flight, so put a note to yourself to make sure that you do this after each trip to ensure that you can at least get a little discount for your next trip with them. Another important topic to cover is refundability, ticket terms versus rebooking, because these are really different and it is easy to make mistakes here, to think that you're saving a little bit of money when in reality you're not. Understand the difference between refundable and rebookable, because when it's refundable you can easily get your money back and you can book a new ticket on new terms. But rebooking is not as beneficial, and it is actually more expensive than you think, because the airline will usually charge you a little bit more for rebooking when you're sitting there trying to rebook, even if that actual date that you're rebooking to has gone cheaper if you look at it without being logged into your prior booking. So it's better to get a refund and then book again from the beginning rather than simply rebooking what you already have. So before you rebook a flight, make sure to check if it is actually cheaper to just get a refund and book again, because they will show you different pricing, and that is kind of a scam. So make sure to look out for it and check both options before deciding what to do. Also, if you have done everything I've said now and booked your long-haul flight 1 year ahead, you can actually check back like every other month or so with the airline or other airline website if they have come up with a better price that you can cancel and rebook to, or if anyone else, any other airline, has come up with a better price and you can get a refund on your original flight and book with them instead. That will require a little bit of extra maintenance, but it may be worth it depending on the price and how big your trip is. That will save you some extra money too. And that is it, so I hope that helps you when you're booking your next flight. If you have any questions about booking flights or anything else that I can help with, make sure to drop those in the comments and subscribe for the next one. Bye!